everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla Stukins. Today I'm going to be reviewing the first book in the Harry Potter series. So it's the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live, where you're from, where you bought your book from. I will be referring to it as the Sorcerer's Stone, since I do live in America and that is what I grew up calling it. That is what I will be referring it to, but it's a Philosopher's Stone as well, right? So if you have not read any of the books, please don't watch this video. I will be referencing things, you know, back and forth from further future books. Anyway, all right, so the very first thing I want to talk about is how much time we get just kind of explaining how Harry's life starts. You know, with the first 100 pages are all before we get to Hogwarts. We learn, you know, Harry's life, what his life is like with the Dursleys, how much abuse he is subjected to with the Dursleys. We get to see him explore, you know, Diagon Alley and meet Hagrid and just explore all these different magical elements before you ever get to Hogwarts at page 100. So that's gonna be the first part of the video, talking about those first like 100 pages. All right. So the first thing, we start the series with the Dursleys. They are very, very, very against magic. We see, you know, Vernon Dursley seeing all these people out in public. You know, they're whispering about what's going on. It's, you know, before it starts present day with Harry. You know, it's 10 years prior, 11 years prior, whatever. No, 10 years prior. My bad. Where he sees all these wizards out and about celebrating the fall of Voldemort. And we really see him not associating anything with magic. He hates magic, despises it. So when Harry comes into their life, he despises them because, you know, they're magic. I mean, Petunia doesn't even talk to her sister and her husband and, you know, Harry, her son, years before that because she's so against magic. And we later find out why she's so opposed to magic. But they're so opposed to it that they abuse their nephew. I mean, the Dursleys lie to Harry about what really happened to his parents. They tell him that his parents died in a car crash because they don't want to admit that magic existed. They don't tell him he's a wizard. You know, Hagrid has to tell him. Harry was abused so heavily, and I'm going to go into the physical aspect right now. I mean, Harry's constantly talked about how he is so light and scrawny for his age, probably because, you know, the Dursleys didn't feed him anything. They hit him. They let Dudley Dursley hit him. You know, they just don't give him stuff either. You know, Dudley was complaining, you know, I have 36 presents. You know, that scene where he's like, I have 36, but last year I had 37. It's a little bit different with the words in the book, but Harry has gotten no presents. And Dudley's complaining because he has 36. You know, they treat Harry like trash and they spoil Dudley so much. You know, Harry is shocked when he gets Hogwarts letter because he's never gotten a letter before. He has no friends, you know, and Dudley's made sure he had absolutely no friends because he's bullied them so hard so that maybe they would like Harry, but they're just so scared of Dudley's wrath as well that they don't associate with Harry. So when he goes to Hogwarts, he's so shocked that people there know his name. You know, with the Dursleys, he's nobody. They treat him like absolutely nobody. But at Hogwarts, everybody knows his name. You know what I mean? Even there won't be a child in our world that doesn't know his name, you know, is what McGonagall says. It's just such a drastic change. It's so sad. As opposed to like the mental thing, I talked about it a little bit, but they just treat him like he's nothing. They talk openly about how bad his parents were in front of him. You know, he celebrated his birthday alone every year of his life because no one cares. You know, nobody cares about his birthday. He even just, you know, that snake that he let out at the zoo, he even talks about how much he understands what that snake is going through because it feels trapped. You know what I mean? So that's why I guess his magic let him out because he knew what it was like. You know what I mean? That's just so sad. It's also interesting to question why Vernon is so opposed to magic. I mean, I know he's probably just doesn't put up with any nonsense, but he is so, like, he shakes when he hears about magic. He's so scared of it. Like, I know why Petunia is, because her sister, you know, was the witch, right? We know, if you haven't read the old books, I won't spoil it, but, like, why is Vernon so opposed to it. Like, I guess it's just because he's married to her, but like it's just, I wonder how much of it, like, they helped each other with, because I'm sure they both opposed it equally, like a little bit, and then they just melded together and it made it worse for both ends, you know what I mean? It's just, they abuse a little child because of it. And this is the book that begins my long-time frustration with why Harry had to live with the Dursleys every year. Like, if you read the last book, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but close your ears if you haven't watched it for a second. I'll like wave at you to come back if you haven't read all the books. I know it's because of the letter that Dumbledore gives her saying, hey, this is the Lily's blood curse. You have to like take care of him so that the blood curse can, the blood spell, the love spell, right, can help Harry every year. So why are they so mean? Why couldn't Dumbledore like threaten the Dursleys and be like, if you don't treat him nicely, we're gonna like kill you, like just something, you know what I mean? Just threaten them so they'd be nice to him. Okay, welcome back. Hello, everybody. Also, there's a quick plot hole that I want to talk about. So when Petunia is discussing her sister, one of the reasons why she hates her is because Lily would come home and, let me quote it for you. Never mind, I don't have a quote. She would say, like, Lily would come home turning teacups into rats, and every summer. But, like, you can't do magic outside of school. You know, it's addressed even in this book. So it's just, like, it's a little plot hole that doesn't, like, exactly line up. Because there's, maybe the rules have changed. Maybe the underage decree of magic, whatever, wasn't published yet, or you know what I mean, made into law yet. So maybe it's not, but we never really hear about that. Anyway, whatever. That's just something that I noticed. I keep sliding down. I'm so sorry. Alright. So a lot is introduced in the first chapter, specifically the first chapter. We learn a lot. We see Animagi for the first time with, you know, McGonagall as her cat. We see the Putter-Outer that eventually, you know, the Putter-Outer that Ron gets. We just see a lot. We get introduced to wizards and the word muggle, and it's not explained till what it means till later, you know, non-magical folk. We see the type of clothes that wizards wear. We see the system of magic start to form, you know, with secret places like Diagon Alley, like under London, you know, in the place, there's this whole other world that exists there, you know what I mean? We learn that, you know, wizards are not supposed to tell muggles that they exist, you know, there's a rift between muggles and wizards, you know? You know, something I want to talk about with Dumbledore is interesting. He was never afraid to say Voldemort's name, you know, power of a name increases the fear of that thing itself. But Harry, who didn't grow up in the wizarding world, isn't afraid to say Voldemort's name. You know, he's the one that probably should be scared of it the most because he's actively coming after Harry, but he isn't afraid to say it. You know, it's just cool how you can compare them. And there's one more, you know, Dumbledore and Voldemort. Many people say it like there is magic that an honorable wizard wouldn't do. You know, a wizard like Dumbledore wouldn't perform dark magic unless he needed to. And it's crazy, like, Voldemort and Dumbledore could very easily are equal in power in some ways, but they're just, Dumbledore is too honorable to do magic. He chooses not to do that dark magic. And with Harry, he chooses not to take into Slytherin. He chooses not to be bad and go into, you know, Gryffindor. It's all a matter of choice. So I just thought was such a connection. That's a little parallel that I thought was cool. You know, it's all about choices. I also thought it was cool, you know, having a character like Harry who is new to the whole wizarding world, has no idea anything about it, anything about the complexities of Quidditch or of the first wizarding war with Voldemort the first time, what happened with Harry's parents, you know, what fear those people were under when Voldemort took over, you know, and it's with a character like Harry who has no idea. When you explain those things to him, you're also explaining it to the audience. Because it wouldn't make any sense if you're explaining things to someone who already knows it. But with him, it's very easy to just explain plot points to Harry because he has no idea what they are. Which I think is super cool, especially taking place at a school. You teach kids the things about the wizarding world, and there you can teach the audience. I think that's cool. Alright, so now we're a little bit into Hogwarts. And again, seeing Hogwarts for the first time is just, it's magical. Opening the doors to the Great Hall, seeing the bewitched ceiling, seeing the ghosts, you know what I mean? People can live in picture frames. You know, Dumbledore's beard is described as like, as white as the ghost. You know, everything's just described so majestically, and I feel like that's why so many people love this this first book, because even though it is kind of slow and there's not like a huge plot like it gets into the later books, everyone wants to go to Hogwarts. You turn 11 and you want your letter. When you turn 12 and you don't have it, you get very sad. You just want to live in this world. That's why we're so comfortable with just seeing the kids go through their everyday lives at school. You know what I mean? Just be in this world, because we don't want the plot to rush. We don't want it to end, because we all want to live at Hogwarts. I mean, the Sorting Hat is such a cool thing. A sentient, how do you say it? A hat that has its brain, it has a brain, like can speak, you know what I mean? Which is a rather funny line Molly has later, and maybe another book, never mind, about like, don't trust an object with a brain if you can't see where the brain is, you know what I mean? I think it's funny. Alright, so something else I want to talk about is the amount of friendship in this book. Specifically, I'm going to talk about first the friendship between the Golden Trio, so Harry, Ron, and Hermione. We always call it the Golden Trio, but it's like never said in the book, which I think is crazy, but like we say the Golden Trio and you know who we're talking about. So we see Ron frequently throughout the series feel as though he's less than his brothers because there's so many of them. You know, he's like, everything that everyone else, that my brothers have done, if I do it, it's not going to be as cool because my brothers have already done it. He feels like the lesser friend in his friendship with Harry and Hermione, because Hermione is really smart. She's the smartest witch in their generation. Harry is famous, you know what I mean? He just feels like the lesser being, and his parents are poor, you know, they're blood traitors to everyone else, every other pure wizard family, and he's so ashamed of that, but Harry doesn't care. Harry just sees wizards who are nice to him, you know, people who are nice to him for the first time in his life, and he loves them, you know. Draco says to Harry, you'll learn quickly that there's some sort of wizards that you're not supposed to hang out with, you know what I mean? Or don't want to associate with, and Harry's like, well, I can do that for myself, you know what I mean? Sure, Draco and his family are like have esteem or like prestigious, but they're awful people, and you know, even though the Weasleys don't have a lot of money, Harry loves them because they're nice people, you know what I mean? I mean, they're on the train and they see the trolley for the first time and all the food, and Harry is just so excited that he has enough money and enough money to buy stuff and share with someone for the first time. He's excited, he has money, and his first thought is he's going to share it with someone else, you know what I mean? And Ron, you know, he hesitates for a second, but then he is able to take something from someone else. You know, he's so against charity, he doesn't want to feel like he's a charity case, but he accepts Harry's act of friendship. You know, they just complement each other so well. And I think another thing that's cool between Harry and Ron is, you know, how they grew up in two different worlds. Harry will mention like soccer or like something from the wizard, like phones or something, and Ron will be like, that exists. You know, Ron is just as intrigued about Muggle stuff as Harry is about wizard stuff, which I think is so intriguing. You know, both of them are like, well, of course this exists, you know what I mean? Of course it does, because I grew up in that world. You know, and then we meet Hermione, and she's like the know-it-all, who's kind of sassy, who kind of thinks she's better than everyone else, and they kind of roll their eyes at her at first, but then they start to realize how valuable she is to them, both as a friend and as a really smart witch. But you know, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Hermione's always in the book, she's always reading stuff. But like, wouldn't you, if you learned you were a wizard and that magic exists, I would be looking up everything. I want to know. It would intrigue me. You're learning magic, which I get for Ron was a little like, I've lived here this way my entire life. But for Harry, it's what magic? And you know, I guess Hermione, she knows about the prejudice of against Muggle-born witches or half-born witches. I just keep saying witches, but wizards, you know what I mean? And I think it makes sense why she would just want to prove herself. You know, she'd be like, well, I'm the smartest witch around, and I'm Muggle-born. You know, she just has to be better than a wizard-born family witch, you know what I mean? Because she just has to prove herself, which I think I understand. You know, we see the dynamics between the trio start to form. Harry and Ron are very okay with causing mischief, breaking the rules if it means they're getting something, not that they want, but like for the greater good. Hermione is very much against it at the beginning, but we see her start to have little moments of character growth where she's okay with breaking the rules here and there if it means protecting the people she loves or doing what's right. I mean, the sort of scenes, the events that lead up to them becoming friends was very wholesome. We see Ron make fun of Hermione, say something like mean to her, and she runs to the bathroom and is crying. And they know the troll is going right after Hermione, and even though they're so terrified and they're kind of mad at her at this point, or like they're just at odds, they still go down there to protect her. And they really show a lot of teamwork here. You know, Hermione is kind of hiding under the sinks or whatever she's hiding. Harry, not knowing much magic, just kind of sticks his wand up the troll's nose, jumps on his back, you know, out of nowhere, and Ron is able to correctly cast the Wingardium Leviosa spell for the first time because Hermione's in trouble. You know, it's just a really beautiful moment because he was struggling with that spell before, and they were able to do it and take down that troll all by themselves. And Hermione even lied to teachers to protect her friends. You know what I mean? Which is just, they're finally friends. And the line where Harry's like, well, of course we're friends. You can't really go through something like that without coming out of it friends, which I thought was very cute. You know, their friendship may be hard sometimes, but it's amazing. You know, they're very loyal friends. Also, side note, the scene where Harry gets presents for the first time from all of his people and gets like the Weasley sweater, and Harry's kind of like, I got presents? And Ron's like, well, of course you got presents. You know what I mean? He wrote to his mom to get Harry presents because he knew he probably wouldn't have any. You know, it just, he got the first present of his life, or Christmas present of his life. And, you know, the scene where they make Fred and Percy and everyone, or Fred and George make Percy put on the Weasley sweater, and they all celebrate Christmas for the first time and are throwing snowballs. I think it's such a cute moment. And also we see Fred and George throwing snowballs at the back of Quirrell's head, which we know has Voldemort on it, which I just thought was funny. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Quidditch. It's in a lot of other books, so I'll probably talk on it a little bit in each one, but Quidditch seems really fun. You know, seeing Lee Jordan, like, commentate, and seeing Dean, you know, try to say, like, foul, or, like, talk about, like, soccer terms, for the game was really fun. The point system is a little off. People have talked about how the snitch shouldn't be worth 150 points, and it's very, very dangerous, which it makes no sense why it should be that dangerous. But it's a fun game. I enjoy reading the little blurbs about like when the game's happening. Those are very enjoyable. And you know, I love that Quidditch is kind of in his blood. You know, Harry's dad was a Quidditch player, and you know, I think there's a line in there where Harry talks about how Quidditch helps his nightmares, which I thought was really cool. Alright, so now we're gonna get a little bit into the meatier part, the stuff about like the misdirect between who was actually trying to hurt Harry, you know, it being Quirrell instead of Snape. So I think the reason why we think Snape is it really lies in the way that Slytherins are portrayed and how unfair they are, like unfairly demonized they are. We describe Slytherin as the house where all the bad wizards go. No one wants to go there. Hagrid warns them about it. Ron warns them about it. Draco is in Slytherin, and he's like their main bully, you know, other than Snape. Again, Snape is in Slytherin and he bullies them. You know, which it makes sense in the first book why Slytherins would be so demonized, because you're setting it up. It's kind of for younger kids to read, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have bad guys, good guys. But as this series developed and as your kids got older, I don't think it should have been so like, Slytherins are bad, these guys are good, you know what I mean? Even in the 7th book, close your eyes, close your ears, the Slytherins can't fight in the war. I know it's because like they didn't want them fighting against their sibling or their family members, but like still, there always been the worst kinds of wizards are in Slytherin. So you think it's Snape. Every time you see Snape looking at Harry and his scar burns, Quirrell's right there. You know what I mean? There's so many misdirects that would make it to be Snape, and it's actually Quirrell. You see when Harry is falling off his broomstick, you think it's Snape because he's muttering the counter curse, but when Hermione sets the fire to Snape's robe, he knocks Quirrell over, which, you know, Snape was trying to save Quirrell. You see Snape and Quirrell arguing in the forest, and it looks like Snape is trying to get Quirrell's information to, like, get into the thing and get the stone, but he's really trying to stop Quirrell from getting there. You know, it just, there's just so many reasons to believe it's Snape. that it was a good misdirect. It was. You really do. Like, I remember when I first watched the movie, because I watched the movies first because I was so young, you really think it is Snape, and then it's Quirrell, and he even puts on the poem between Quirrell, like the stutter. I mean, there's a lot more reasons why they believe it's Snape, but those are just the main ones. I mean, so you see the Slytherin ghost, and he's like bloody and covered in like, just blood, and he's a scary guy. You see Snape limping, and you think it's because he got bitten by the three-headed dog, which he did, but he was trying to stop Quirrell, you know what I mean? Which, moving on to like the mystery of who Nicholas Flamel was, and like the Sorcerer's Stone. So like that one isn't like the bigger like mystery, because let's talk about it. Harry didn't need to go for this stone. Voldemort and Quirrell never would have gotten the stone because he needed to want it but not use it to have it, so they never would have gotten it. Dumbledore would have came back from the Ministry, went down there, defeated Quirrell, because yes, he didn't have the love spell, you know what I mean, to stop Quirrell, but I'm pretty sure Dumbledore would have been more powerful to overpower Quirrell and, the shell of what Voldemort was. Harry didn't need to go. They didn't need to know what the Sorcerer's Stone was. They didn't need to know who Nicholas Flamel was. They just didn't need to know. But it was fun to see them start to be mysterious and to sneak around the Forbidden Library and, just to, like, be kids and be curious and just explore things. It introduces you to the world first and foremost. You get to see them wandering around the castle and exploring new spells and, trying out new things, and you get to see them going through the trapdoor. And it's just like point A leads you to point B. They need to just, you know what I mean? It's just for plot, for storytelling. And, you get the funny scenes with Hagrid, where Hagrid will let something slip on accident, and everyone will be like, oh! And Hagrid kind of freak out, but they're funny. It showed how gullible Hagrid was. He would, every time you buttered him up, he would tell you what it was about, or like tell you something. It just shows how deep down Hagrid wanted to be appreciated and, listened to. The friendship between the trio and Hagrid was always one of my favorite parts, because it's just so cute. So we're going to talk a little bit about Neville and his growth, because Neville is my favorite character. I know he's a lot of people's favorite just because of how cool he is and how, like, he's just cool. So he starts off as this like nerdy misfit character. His own relatives even think he's, really bad at magic, and then he's kind of like just not a good wizard. I mean, in Flitwick's class, they even make Neville's toad zip around the classroom. Just even the teachers treat Neville terribly, especially Snape. We see Draco put the leg locking curse on Neville, and Neville is too scared to confront Draco, but Hermione's, shows him friendship, and she says, you're 12 of what Draco is. You're a better wizard, better person than Draco will ever be. And, Neville even says that to Draco. We see him have enough confidence with what the trio's given him to stand up to somebody. At the end, he even stands up to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, or Harry and no, all of them, which is what makes, Dumbledore's words to him at the end, that standing up to your friends is so much, or is equally as brave than standing up to your enemies, which is just, because Neville always deserved to be in Gryffindor, you know what I mean? So now I'm going to talk a little bit about, like, the very end, like, where the kids go through the trapdoor. They go against the obstacles, the enchantments to get through, all the way to Harry facing Quirrell, and then Dumbledore's speech at the very end in the feast. So when they're going through the obstacles to get the stone, Harry is very much against them coming with him because he wants to do it alone. He doesn't want to put his friends in danger, but they're like, of course, Harry, we're coming with you. We're with you. We stand with you. We're coming. And they really need to have each of them. They really do, because you need Hermione for Devil's Snare. You need Ron to get the chess match. You need Harry to fly with the keys. You need Hermione to get past the potions. And then you need Harry to, fight Quirrell. Each of them were equally important, you know what I mean? Like, they needed to get Harry there. Without either of them, Harry never would have gotten to the end. They always need them. Ron sacrificing himself at the chess match just was so... He loved Harry so much, he would do that for him. And I always thought how cool, like, the ones with the potion was, where they have, like, the little riddle about, like, which one of them has poison, one of them gets you through, that whole thing. That it was just logic. Hermione even says that some of the brightest wizards ever don't have an ounce of logic in their bones. She came from a muggle world where they have math and science and all these different equations, and she could do it because she was logical. You know, Harry and Hermione have a sweet moment here too, where they're like, Harry's like, well, you're a better witch than I am. And she's like, you know, well, you're an amazing wizard too. We both have our strengths. Everyone has their strengths. You know, they both accept that they're both good wizards, which is, I think, is so cool. And then in Harry's conversation with Dumbledore at the end, we learn a lot for what's going to lead up to the next books in the series. We learn about Lily's protection spell and how she died for Harry to protect him. You know, Voldemort doesn't know how to love, so he can't touch something that has that much power of love in it, which I thought makes such an interesting villain. His downfall is always going to be that he can't fight for love, that he doesn't know love. You know, like when you have two opposing sides, one of them is fighting to protect their loved ones, fighting to keep their family alive, and then one is just fighting for power. These guys always have such a bit greater reason to fight. You know what I mean? They have more passion. You know, Dumbledore says that Voldemort isn't fully alive. So, you know, he always had to come back to life fully in order to be destroyed. He had to gain power again. Harry asks, you know, why Dumbledore is after him, or why Voldemort is after him, and Dumbledore says, oh, I'll tell you when you're older, you're not ready now. You know, this is the first indication that Dumbledore knows more about Harry's fate than he's letting on, which I think is very, very interesting. You know, close your ears again if you haven't read it. If you just, you know what, I'm going to put a reminder at the beginning of this video that if you haven't watched all of them, just to not watch it, because you're going to get spoiled. Anyway, I love that twist. You know, the one person who is supposed to bring everyone safety, bring everyone, you know, win the war, isn't going to get to live after they win it, isn't going to get to live in the world after. You know, Dumbledore says that Snape hated Harry because he hated his dad and that they didn't get along at school, but he doesn't tell Harry that his dad was also a bully. You know, he leaves that part out, which we'll talk more about, like, Harry's dad later in the books, but I always thought that was so cool because we think Harry's dad is obviously going to be a good guy because his mom died for him, you know, sacrificed himself, so you think his dad is going to be amazing too. Because everyone says, well, the Potter kid, he's going to be amazing because of his parents. You never think he's going to be a bully like he is. You know, the whole thing with the stone, you know, you can't get it unless you want the stone without, you know, wanting to use it, was always so cool. You know, Voldemort only wanted power and fame and fortune, you know, where Harry was just trying to protect himself, protect the ones he loved, make sure his mom's sacrifice wasn't in vain. You know, Voldemort just wanted power. He was greedy, which is why Harry was always going to win. Voldemort, I always try to call him Dumbledore. Voldemort was always going to lose, which I think is so interesting, you know, that was his downfall. Pride. You know, the fatal flaw is pride, you know what I mean? Right, so now we're at the end of the book. They've had the feast, you know, we talked about the points that they've been given just a little bit, which I thought was so cool, how they got points for just being good people, and how Neville was the one who won the whole thing, and they hug him, everyone's cheering for Neville for the first time, and he's like, actually, like, you know what I mean? That's such a cool scene where everyone loves Neville. Anyway, the feast is over. Harry's sad to be going home, but he knows he'll be back soon, and that Hogwarts will always be his home. And that he'll have a great normal year next year, right? Right. Let's hope he has it normally. Probably won't. Anyway, so this is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I love this book. It's a great opening to the series. Great, great, great. I did a a ranking of all of the Harry Potter books in order. If you would like to watch that, I'll be doing. So this video is going to go up on Monday on the 12th, April 12th at 2 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. at some point. I don't know what I am. I forgot. Eastern, Central? I don't know. Central Standard Time, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it'll be going up Monday every week. So the 12th will be the first book, the 19th will be the second book, you know, and it'll keep going until I get to the 7th one, and then I think I might do Cursed Child after that. So if you want to subscribe, like this video, wait for those next videos. I'm going to be going through all of them, you know, so I think I'm very excited. So if you want to see more of that, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, do what you want. welcome to my YouTube channel. Okay, bye. I love you.